Hello, everyone, wherever you are. Thank you for listening. Immense gratitude to Cooper Union's crucial IDS Public Lecture Series and to Omar and Leslie and the team for their care and generosity. You'll soon know from my talk how important it is for me, the notions of shared care and ethical responsibility towards each other in the outward. So today, well, tonight for me, I'm going to share with you a few ideas about my practice. I'm going to pick the works that allow me to discuss the notion of embodiment, which is, as Leslie said, the focus of this lecture series. I'll be showing you some short videos to give you visual references of the works. That's if Beirut's internet permits. Otherwise, we'll happily share links with you. You can also find them on my website at any time. So Omar said in his wonderful introduction, thank you so much, made me blush. I am a life artist. The work that I do, I consider to be life art, though some people might refer to it in an entirely different way, such as performance art, visual art, multidisciplinary art, theater, social practice, community-based art, and more. I am at peace with people defining my work however they understand it to be, except for the few times when I had to push back and ask questions, like when venues describe me as artivist, a term that mixes artist and activist in quite an obnoxious way, in my opinion, especially when it's done solely for marketing purposes. I am indeed an artist working on the intersection of art and activism, but I don't present my artwork as activisms, as I don't want it to be understood as a project made for the good of the society and is therefore exempt from any debate or criticism. A more genuine and humble way for discussing the intersection of art and activism is to think about the political potentiality of art. As in art, that is not inherently a project of progressive politics, but has the potential for advancing such politics. A potentiality that can only be studied after this art is shared with an audience. I will go back to this idea of political potentiality later when discussing how I work with audiences in the various projects that I will share with you today. But first, some of you may be wondering why the term live art, or what is live art exactly? So live art is a practice that has started mainly in the UK, where I studied and lived for over a decade before having the ridiculous idea of returning back home to Lebanon. Live art is an expansive spectrum of disciplines. It started with a need to expand beyond the Eurocentricity and the whiteness of performance art and its institutionalization in gallery spaces. Live art is a cultural strategy of inclusivity. It has risen in post-Thatcher Britain and the need to make space for marginalized artists and marginalized ideas for underground and underrepresented cultures. Lewis Keedon, the co-founder of Live Art Development Agency, said once jokingly that when we describe something as live arty, we mean by it that it's disruptive, different, and that it questions everything. What I find useful in describing my work as live art as that is a practice that includes the thinking about art. And thank you, Omar, for actually mentioning how important it is for me to think about form. Thinking about art is an intrinsic value of the practice of live art. It includes thinking about who's making the art, how they're making it, where is it made, and who's experiencing it. So the live art that I personally make takes different shapes. Sometimes it is a video installation, a sound installation, a site-specific performance, a one-on-one performance, a city walk, a boat ride, a party, and many others that can all be described as live art events. The only constant element in these projects is that they are always interactive, as in the audience is invited to interact with the artwork or with the artist rather than view or watch the work. The level of interactivity in these various projects may vary from an invitation to wander around the space to an invitation for the audience to actually perform the work. In such instances, it is the audience itself that activates the work, transforming it from an installation to a performance that begins from the moment the audience enters the space and ends when the last audience member leaves the space. Such is the case with two of the works that I will be sharing with you today, Garden Speak, created in 2014, and Cultural Exchange Rate, created recently in 2019. Both these pieces function without a performer. It is the audience, usually it's a group of maximum 10 audience at a time, who by following simple instructions perform the work, following their own rhythms and engaging each in their own way. Interactivity may be linked in our imagination to children play, video games, AI, and the internet. It may also be linked to experience rooms or mainstream franchise performances. These interactive experiences exploit the thrill of interactivity to produce consumable events that gives the audience the illusion of having choices to make. This type of spectatorship is what scholars of performance have critiqued as interactivity that is in line with neoliberal politics. Scholar Karen Zions refers to the spectatorship as narcissistic audience, as in the audience that essentially enjoys being the center of any event or experience. Scholar Jen Harvey uses the term prosumer for audience of these events, which is a term that mixes consumer and producer. Generally, this term is employed in online shopping or online banking, whereby the consumer produces their own experience and is made to feel empowered by it because they have that choice. Harvey rightly points out that this is in line with neoliberal politics when we applaud individualism and reject those relying on the state, or in this case, on the artist. Keeping that in mind is important to me, so we don't go about romanticizing interactivity or thinking that it's inherently linked to progressive politics. For me, interactivity is not merely just about giving people or giving audience choices, simple choices of yes or no, blue or green, but to invite them to co-create, collaborate, and bring the work alive. This type of interaction implicates people's empathy, allowing them to bear witness to other people's stories and open up their own politics in the hope that these may be challenged or transformed during the experience. Sorry. I can't see you, so I'm talking to my computer. The interactivity I'm interested in is the one that allows for political potential, which I mentioned earlier. This is where the notion of embodiment is key. So I'd like to propose that interactivity offers a space for audience to embody the work, allowing them to become and perform other people's narratives and realities. As a first example, I would like to share with you a short video from Garden Speak. I'll give you a chance to look at it first before telling you more about it. The video starts without sound at the beginning.
ضرب الخناجر وعلى حكم الندلبية شهيدنا البطل أغلى من العالي مفتاح درب الأمل والأمل برجالي يا شعبي نو يا بطل أفديك بعيني يما مويل الهوى يما مويلية ضرب الخناجر ولا حكم الندلبية.
Okay, so in garden speak, I use sound, smell, and touch to create a multisensory experience that audiences can embody, allowing them to connect with the subject of the work beyond their rational thinking. Sorry, sorry, there is sound coming from somewhere. Okay, I stopped it. So allowing them to connect with the subject of the work beyond their rational thinking through their body-mind. The body-mind is a term used by director and scholar Philip Zarelli while discussing the psychophysical training of the performer. Theater studies scholar Erika Fischer-Lichte believes that embodiment produces both the scenic presence and a dramatic figure or role the performer is playing. She uses the concept of embodiment to bind the semiotic body to what she calls the phenomenal body. She defines embodiment as the bodily processes by which the phenomenal body brings forth himself, as in each case, particular body, and at the same time, specific meanings. Zarelli has developed a theory that could help better explain this process of embodiment. His psychophysical approach to acting is built on both perception and embodiment. He advocates for constant re-education of one's body-mind so that the performer looks, sees, listens, and hears in a completely fresh and in a new way each time she enters a training studio or a stage. So embodiment here is understood as a heightened bodily experience, an engaged and engaging scenic presence. I find this analysis very helpful to understand what interactivity can do to our bodies. In the context of my work, it is not about the performer's presence, because in these pieces, the performers are not actually present, but it is in relation to the bodies of audience. In garden speak, a heightened bodily presence and awareness of the audience is facilitated through the whispered stories, the dim lighting, and the stillness of the body. The body becomes all eyes, Zarelli explains. In garden speak, the body also becomes all ears. It is an invitation for an exercise in radical listening. Also in garden speak, the process of embodiment travels from the physical body of the audience lying and listening to the embodied awareness of another life that was made absent, then to the awareness of one's own body lying on the soil along with other bodies' closely felt presence. Lying on the ground in the dark, listening to the whispered sounds into their ears while touching and smelling fresh soil facilitate the process of embodiment. It places the audience inside an image, if seen from a top view, forms the scene of a grave, bodies wrapped in white cloth over freshly turned soil beneath unofficial tombstones. Embodiment here is resistance to the killings by commemoration, remembering, and a transmission of stories and lives amongst the people. The second project that I'd like to share with you is the most autobiographical or personal project today. Well, except when I invited audience to be a couple therapist for my then boyfriend in my 20s. But for the last, as a grown-up, for the last decade at least, this has been the most personal work. This is a video.
She would ask me to cut or comb her hair. The viewer never saw my shop. She said, perhaps you're writing her name. I gave her all the possibilities of discovering this. How do you do it? Ceci faut s'expérimenter et se lever sans s'enseigner. Rifletti i tempi che cambiano in quel periodo.
Construyó una casa. Una vez acabado el dinero que se llevó de México, los niños dejaron la escuela y empezaron a trabajar para sobrevivir. Al cabo de 10 años, el padre volvió de México. I was looking for Sada, my great-grandmother, and Rashid, my great-grandfather. I found 2 women with names close enough to Sada.
In Cultural Exchange Rate, I share my family history with border crossings across a century. The work employs interactivity both in the making process, through interacting with various family members in various countries, and in its encounter with the audience. The audience enters a darkly lit space filled with secured metal cabinets. Each audience is given a set of keys, each key opening a specific cabinet where the audience needs to stick their heads into so as to listen, watch, smell, see, touch, and even taste. Every cabinet has an entirely different story, scene, or material. The order of these cabinets is experienced completely differently by every audience member. So they each have a very unique journey during this work. This is a piece experienced intimately, often only with audience faces, when they stick their heads into the cabinet. Inside the cabinet, their heads are surrounded by a black fabric that shields them from the outside world. Close to their ears, there are speakers from which they hear voices, sounds from different places, and music. Close to their skin, they sometimes feel wind blowing. Close to their eyes, they can watch a moving image or look at objects in the cabinets. In one cabinet, there is food that they can taste. This was obviously pre-pandemic, where we were able to touch things after each other. Each cabinet smells completely different in a different way, depending on the place it creates. The intimacy of these, what we can call as micro experiences, works in juxtaposition with the coldness of bank vaults and the theme of political economy. The audience here is again invited to embody the work in its content and its complexities, to place themselves inside one family, well, my family's secrets, and to meditate on their own positionality vis-a-vis stories of migration, refuge, and economic strain. When I opened Cultural Exchange Rate exactly a year ago, Lebanon seemed hopeful with the spark of a mass uprising that erupted on October 17th of last year. The country's economy was certainly threatened, but not collapsed as it currently is. Its currency was not yet at 20% its original value, as it is today. This is without mentioning the brutal state repression of protests, followed by the devastating explosion this past August that Omar mentioned, which destroyed half of the city and left many dead, wounded, and homeless. Today, once again, large groups of people are migrating from Lebanon, trying to survive its economic collapse and lack of security. And just like my great-grandfather did nearly a century ago, as we narrate in Cultural Exchange Rate, the youngest members of my family are now looking at migrating as their own means of survival and perhaps growth. So this piece is right now loaded with the heaviness of the current political reality, which was not the case last year when I opened it. And such is the nature of interactive work. They transform and they adapt and they never cease to evolve depending on the political context and the time. The third project that I'd like to share with you here is slightly different in its relationship to audience, because it's a one-on-one performance, as in it's for one audience member at a time, facing one performer, and no other audience is present. Again, I will show you a short video and then we can talk about it. Well, I talk about it.
Hello, my name is Baz. I'm sitting on the other side of the wall. Please, place your left arm in the hole in the wall in front of you. This is me, touching your arm.
وانا وحاي وذاب الصخر من همي وانا وحايا يا ويلي كرابة عود يا يما وانا وحاي سفيني غرقت بدمعي وانا وحاي وذاب الصخر من همي وانا من أني وأنا وحايا يا ويلي وأنا وحايا يا ويلي كرابة عود يا يما وأنا وحايا سفيني غرقت بدمعي وأنا وحايا وذاب كرابة عود يا يما وانا
Take me back to where I started out, watching the kids from the balcony, smell of your skin next to me. We only want what everyone wants. We only want what everyone wants. We only want what everybody
The premise of this piece, as you saw in the video, is an encounter through a gallery wall between a refugee and an audience member. They don't see each other, but the audience member is invited to place their arm into a hole through the gallery wall, while the refugee touches them and draws on their arm from the other side. The performer is the musician and street artist Basil Zarra. Basil was born a Palestinian refugee in Yarmouk refugee camp in Damascus. He now lives in the United Kingdom, where we met and became both friends and collaborators. Like many of my work, as far as my fingertips take me, is essentially a tactile and sound experience. Basil touches the audience's arms, massages it, and draws on it. While being marked by Basil, the audience listens through a pair of headphones to his voice, first introducing himself, then narrating a story, and finally rapping a rap song that he created and recorded. Is based on his sister's journey from Yarmouk refugee camp to Sweden. The wide gallery wall between the audience and the performer is a physical border between them. I first, when conceptualizing this piece, I imagined that audiences will be reluctant to stick their arms in a hole and be touched by someone they could not see, because it's an exercise of trust. But instead, people were eager to connect. They were touched physically and said that they were touched emotionally, and have said to us that they were touched emotionally. The response for this piece continued to be overwhelming. It has stored the word since and left us wondering what made such a simple and short piece touching for many people. I was told through many conversations with people, I was told that this was a short piece. It's essentially a 10-minute performance that remained with them for about 4 days. The drawings on the audience arms were slowly disappearing with every shower. In a way, the connection to the story of migration and refuge was constantly being addressed and questioned throughout these 4 days. Some audience members told me that they tried to keep the drawing on their arms as long as possible, showering with a cover or lifting their arm up. A few even reached out to get permission to tattoo the drawing. I've seen one armed so far tattooed with a drawing from this piece, which left me kind of feeling this sense of responsibility towards this audience. My work is now marked in ink on his body, like taking embodiment to another level, a more quotidian, everyday life outside of the space of live art and live art encounter. I understand embodiment in as far as my fingertips take me as an invitation for audience to wear their empathy on their body, to make it visible, to live with it for a few days, to be reminded of it, and to be at peace with it, or not, to reject it, to decide that this is not for them, or it's not them. In either case, this is an opportunity for each one of us to face their own politics. Some concluding thoughts before you all get too bored of me. I'm getting already bored of me. How do we create spaces for our audience in which they can reveal their politics while allowing themselves to be challenged and transformed? When working with marginalized communities in particular, how do we avoid ending up creating work that open up deep wounds while offering little prospect of healing? How do we avoid doing more harm than good? Sometimes even those of us who have the best possible intentions unavoidably contribute to hierarchies of power, such as the gentrification of our cities and the broader project of neoliberalism. Today, of course, you don't need me to tell you this, but the world feels at a particularly grim place. And I understand that I'm saying that from Beirut, so I don't want to project on you more negativity. But border politics are increasingly lethal. State violence is more and more normalized, and institutionalized racism is rampant. In the face of all of this, I don't want to give any illusion that art is the solution for world's problems and that artists in any shape or form are the society's saviors. Instead, I like us to start with the assumption that art audience are also empowered political beings rather than privileged art goers who need to be saved by us, the enlightened artist. Crucial to this is for both artists and audience to take risks in revealing their own politics. So I want to propose for us to look at ways in which we can share our human vulnerability. And one of the ways to do that is to look at embodying of other people's stories in one's body mind as a strategy for audience interactivity in live art. I would like to finish by a piece that is not actually mine, but one that I co-curated last year in No Wall Remains Festival on Borders at Bard College. This is a piece called Hostile Terrain 94. It's an interactive installation by Jason DeLeon. It's a documentary installation documenting the deaths of people crossing the Arizona-Mexico border. It invites the audience to participate in filling by hand 3,117 toe tags with information containing these toe tags contain information on the death details of those who have died attempting to migrate. I'm gonna show you an image to give you an idea. I couldn't find the video, sorry. But I'll show you an image. So this is the wall, I think you're seeing it. This is a wall that has a map and it continues to grow throughout the festival and by people, audience member and participant writing the details of every single person, details of their death, the condition of their bodies, and where exactly they were found dead. You can see that here, images of an image of people filling these information. So the wall, you know, that you saw, it kept growing with toe tags throughout the festival, and that chilling reminder that borders are killing people every day. And the audience was implicated in the process of remembering by placing their handwriting on the victim's archived death. The audience will commemorate the dead, as the title of this talk suggests, meaning they are no longer audience, but witnesses to the crime. They will be implicated and responsible. Like family members and loved ones, they will take part in mourning the dead, commemorating them, and resisting their erasure by state violence. Their commemoration is not a mere rational understanding of what is right and what is wrong, but an embodied knowledge of other people's lives, struggles, and death. Thank you.